senior editor at In Touch Weekly. And we'll start with you, Kim, because you guys broke this story. Of course, Nick Loeb has been talking very the op-ed piece as
exactly.
we finally hear from Sofia today.
Exactly, yes, and In Touch did have the exclusive on the court documents on this lawsuit being filed, and then as you mentioned, Nick Loeb did write this op-ed in the New York Times. Sofia, as you just played that clip of her talking about this, very different tones. The op-ed was very serious, very emotional, very heartfelt. It is a moral issue, but it's also a legal issue, and I think you heard that with Sofia this morning, or when she was on Howard Stern talking about it, kind of laughing at it, saying that there is a contract. So she's talking more about the legal side of it and also talking a little bit about the side of it, a child needs to grow up with two parents. So you're hearing really two different sides of the story, you know, and when they said, oh, do you hate him? She said, no, but he has some issues with me.
Sure.
So Areva, is there even a suit here if he signed all this paperwork?
Well, we're hearing different things from both parties. So what Sofia is saying is, look, there was a contract signed, you signed it, it was reviewed by lawyers, not once, but twice, and you agreed that nothing could happen to these eggs unless we mutually agreed. So in her mind, she doesn't understand what this is all about. She's already made it very clear she wants those eggs to remain frozen. She doesn't want some woman that she doesn't know carrying a child that essentially would be her child.
Yeah,
and she said, you can't force me to be a mom. Nick, move on.
But what Nick is saying is that it takes both parents to take this embryo to term, but nothing in the contract says anything about what happens when we split with these embryos.
But still, he's asking a court to force Sofia to be a parent. And courts have wrangled with this because this is a really touchy issue. Are these eggs property? Are they a child? Or are they something in between? And a court looking at this in Tennessee in 1992 allowed a dad to have embryos destroyed after he said he didn't want his ex-wife continuing to, do something with those eggs, have them implanted in another person, or to, have those eggs come to maturity.
And I think Nick's argument is, like, if we kept them frozen, it would be like killing
Right.
children.
Well, a source had told In Touch, Nick is very pro-life. That's why he's invested in this. And then in that op-ed, he really makes a point that he's really more pro-parent. So it's an issue, so he takes it to a different level. And again, I think Sophia's really talking about the legal issue, saying that lawyers are involved and that she didn't do anything wrong. And I think by the legal standards, she didn't. So
well, let's look at Nick saying he's pro-life, and he's also saying this is based on his Catholicism. But Catholicism says no in vitro to begin with. So he's kind of having it both ways. He wants to be a Catholic when he wants to preserve the eggs, but Catholics in the first place say no in vitro.
This is not, though, like signing up for an app and you just scroll through and read I agree at the bottom. I mean, these contracts are very explicit on what your rights are and what happens to these.
I think what's interesting, these people weren't married. So think about how serious this decision is made between two individuals who aren't married. It's tough enough when you're married and there's a child involved and you have to fight over custody. So you have two unmarried people now fighting over frozen eggs. And I hope this is a teachable moment for anyone that's thinking about in vitro to someone that they're just dating.
And really quickly, Kim, what I found interesting is you talked about her giggling during this interview, but she had talked that she doesn't even talk about this with her current fiance right now.
Right. She said, we're involved in other things. We're moving into our house. We're focusing on our wedding. And our lawyers are dealing with it. And I think that's obviously, look, she's good. She does a lot of interviews. She knows how to handle these issues. She knew this was probably going to come up as she's been doing publicity for this movie. So she had a way of handling it. And I think, again, she's saying, look, the lawyers are handling it. It's a legal matter. And I think that's how she chose to handle it. And it was a smart thing for her to do.
You think
she's saying move on.
Do you think it's a coincidence she's talking now just as this new movie comes out?
But she's not the one that initiated.
I mean, the lawsuit is out there. People are talking about this.
So she had no choice but really to talk about it.
Areva, I have to ask you this. For couples that are thinking about going into this, for couples that are sitting there going through the paperwork now, thinking, what happens if we break up?
Learn something from this case, because what we're hearing is that this contract doesn't account for what happens in the event of a breakup. It talks about what happens in the event someone dies. But apparently there's some issues about how comprehensive the contract is. I think the contract is going to be very important. So consult a lawyer before you go into this situation, before you, make this kind of commitment, and make sure the contract is thorough. and covers all contingencies.
And Sofia even said on Howard Stern, they did this twice. They went through this twice. And Nick, in his op-ed, says that he wants to get part of this voided. So they both understand the legal aspects of it. But Areva's absolutely right. If you are going through this, look to this as an example.
And really quickly wanted to ask you about Danielle Watts. Areva, I mean, now she's... She has to apologize. You see, apologize and just
write letters of apology to the police officers.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual, and to the people in her building. And the 40 hours of community service, I think, you know, the prosecutors were trying to find a way to give them a soft landing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really did fight this hard. They were making a lot of public statements that they were racially profiled. And the police at first said nothing. It was one police officer that came forward to kind of clear his own name. And we all heard that tape.
All the activists, you know, who were, you know, those folks who stood up for Trayvon Martin and stood up for some of these other high-profile cases, they jumped on this case. And they were supporting her. And they were angry when that audio came out and they realized that that police officer did nothing wrong. And the African-American community demanded that she apologize. And they said, look, we're distancing ourselves from her because we don't want bogus racially profiling cases to be out there. We want to support those cases where something really has happened. And doesn't look like much happened there but some sex between two people. So.
It happens. All right. Areva Martin, Kim Serafin, In Touch Weekly, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks.
All right.
All right, so you can read more about Sofia Vergara's